Pit Boss 1600 Elite first cooked smoked brisket. Now doing the burn off is always fun, but when you get into that first cook, you know that's when it builds up that excitement. And we're not getting off easy today. We're doing a long, low and slow cook. So grab a cup of coffee, Carlos. We're gonna amplify some backyard barbecue fun. Tired. I took this 20-pound prime brisket out of the cryovac and patted it dry with some paper towel. I'm trimming this brisket eating style. We want some meat. We ain't just looking for pretty. But this still ain't no ugly duckling. And I rubbed it up with my favorite 3 parts black pepper and 1 part kosher salt. We're doing this one simple today. But before we get to that brisket, today's video is brought to you by Cometeer. Cometeer is a completely new way of making coffee. Nothing else like this exists on the market. It is the only 100% brewed coffee that is flash frozen. I like to take these little aluminum containers and rub them like this in my hands. You know, making a fire. Peel off the top and just take it and plop it in the cup. Dump in about 8 to 10 ounces of hot water. Now I'm just gonna let this sit for 1 minute. It's time for a little pickup. Yummy. It even smells good. This honestly tastes like a fresh roasted brew. Now I picked the hologram one on purpose because it says there's a little bit of syrup in it. I'm from Wisconsin. We love syrup. If you're like me and you don't like to deal with coffee grounds, this is a great solution because they take all the grounds to a local compost. If you're a coffee lover or if you just kind of like coffee, check the links below and save yourself 40%. Make sure you use my Broke BBQ 40. There's no need to run to the gas station anymore. Couple minutes, you got yourself a cup with just this. And an aluminum puck filled with deliciousness. I'm feeling alive now. We're gonna get the cutting board out of the way and get that Pit Boss ready to get fired up. For today's cook, we're using 100% oak lumberjack pellets. We still have a little bit of that mesquite in here, so that ain't gonna hurt nothing. Pour them in. And I'm using my ThermalWorks signals to check the ambient temperature throughout this pit. This one I'm gonna put way on the right-hand side. Now if this pit runs anything like the standard 1600, it's gonna hold pretty close. We'll put this one over on the left-hand side of the pit. Turn the power on, and we're gonna turn this one all the way up to 275 degrees, and you can see 5-degree increments. And we'll leave the lid open until all that white smoke starts burning clean. The motors in this pit are brushless. They're just being run by magnets, so they're super, super quiet. And the only way you know it's turning is you might hear that auger clink a little bit. Now it's only been about 2 minutes and we're already starting to develop some smoke. Smoke on the coffee. All right, we're hearing our fan go in. And you can see we're burning clean. So we'll close up the lid and I'm gonna start a stopwatch and we'll see how long it takes to get up to 275 degrees. We're at 250 degrees in just under 9 minutes, and that's pretty quick. I think last year's 1600, before I got that controller updated, took at least a half an hour. Now obviously the right-hand side is a lot hotter than the left-hand side, but that's because we're just coming up to temp right now. You have to let this pit heat up. Don't expect it to be spot on from left to right when you first start it up. And I typically don't like to put a probe in a pit that's brand new. You need to break these in a little bit. That PID controller is actually still learning. Yes, it kind of learns. Now we're closing in on that 275 degrees and we're just right around 12 minutes. Now I'm still gonna preheat this for another 10 minutes before I put that brisket in. All right, it's been another 10 minutes and we've got about a 50-degree difference from left to right. But remember, we don't have any thermal mass in here. So let's get that big hunk of brisket a-cooking. Ooh, she's a-looking nice. Open up our lid, and I'm putting it over on this right-hand side, just left of the fire pot. And remember, how you put it in is how it's gonna cook, so we're gonna dome this one up a little bit. We're gonna have to adjust it just a hair so we're not up against that ambient probe. Tuck in our wire, and now I'll set a timer for about 2 hours, and then I'll come back out here and we'll put a probe in that brisket. Plus, I need another cup of coffee. My 2-hour timer went off. Let's check out this brisket. We certainly are developing some nice smoky color on this brisket. I want to rotate 180 degrees, but ooh, look at them. That's looking good. Turn it around and put it right back in. Now I'm gonna hook up some meat probes in here. Gonna use my signals, stick this one in the thicker part of the flat, kind of right about there. And I'm also gonna use one of the probes sent by Pit Boss. And we'll put it in that same general location. Get her halfway in. And I just want to test and see how accurate the controller for the probe is on the Pit Boss compared to my signals. I've never had a single cook ever fail when I'm using my signals to read the temperatures. So that's kind of just my scientific way of testing to see how accurate the probe is on the pit. Obviously, I've got some wires in the way, but we're reading 114 on the signals and 113 on the Pit Boss probe. So that's pretty much dead nuts. For the first 2 hours, the temperatures on the 1600 Elite have been from left to right off about 50 degrees. And during that 2 hours, I did set that back vent to partially closed. If you're new to a pellet grill, you have to learn about rotating your meat or your protein around during the cook. It's obviously the design. You have the fan on the left side next to the hopper, pushing over to the right side of the pit. Now I'll set a timer for another hour and we'll check and see if the bark is actually set and if we need to spritz a little bit. I'm just gonna use plain warm water for the spritz. And I'll bring you back when it's time to put this brisket in a crutch. I've reached an internal temperature of 175 degrees on this brisket, but before I throw this brisket in a crutch, I've been running for about 6.5 hours, and that ambient probe on the pit itself barely budged off that 275 degrees. Now remember that the pit probe, it's actually just taking an average throughout the whole chamber. Most pellet grills calculate for a while and then they spit out a number every 15 seconds or so. One thing I noticed right away is when it's in the smoke mode, it's producing some smoke. And I shut that off when I reached an internal temperature of 165 degrees because brisket, it's not gonna take any more smoke once you get around that temperature. But you can see right now, it's burning pretty clean because now we're on the PID mode. That's part of the new variable smoke technology. And that basically means it has two cooking modes. It has the PID, which it's gonna read and respond, and it's also incorporated the old analog or cycling cooking, which means the auger is gonna do so many revolutions at the temperature that you've set it at. So Pit Boss has taken the two and combined them together. All right, let's get this brisket out of the pit. I certainly like how this bark is developing. It's got a good color, and today I'm gonna use a pan for the crutch. Pull out our meat probes, grab out my brisket. Ooh, pitmaster's privilege. Pour a little bit of consommé over the top of it. Always good to run it right on top of that brisket because this will soak it in. What the heck. We'll put another can. I know a lot of people wish that the front shelf was a little deeper, but you can get away with a hotel pan sitting on there with a brisket in it. After seeing that the Pit Boss meat probe matched my signals, I'm just gonna use one of them. Get it pushed back pretty much in the same position. That'll work. Now a piece of aluminum foil, put it back in the pit, and we'll close up our lid, and I'll bring you back when this brisket is probe tender. I've got just about 8 hours on this cook. We've got an internal temperature of 205 degrees. Let's go ahead and check this brisket out. Gotta suit up first though. Peel off our aluminum foil, but be very careful because it's going to be hot. See that steam starting to come out of there? You don't want to get that on you. See how she probes? This point is easily done. Check and see what the flat looks like. Yeah, it's a little stiff right there, but these edges feel good. I'm gonna put my aluminum foil back on, close up the lid, and give this another 20 minutes, and then it should be pretty much spot on probe tender. So the next time you see me, I'll be at the cutting board, and we're gonna slice into this brisket. This brisket is rested for 2 hours, and I really like the bark that we developed. Now the grain is running this direction, but we'll cut it right in half up here towards the point. I think, ooh, she's tender. I think we got something there. It certainly has some good jiggle. I think that's pretty good. Right. We gotta slice it this way. This is pretty warm still. I would typically wouldn't rush this, but I'm getting hungry. Wow, we have got some serious flat here. Take this point, Cut this little fella in half. Now, all of you know I don't squeeze my meat, but this is really tempting. Pit Boss Elite 1600 did a mighty fine job. Boy, that's nice and tender. Of course, we gotta try it. Absolutely butter. Take a little bit of this flat, try that. Boink, and cut her. Tender too. For a flat, there's a lot of juice in it. I certainly taste a good smoky profile, but look at this smoke ring. I'm very happy with the results the Pit Boss Pro Series Elite 1600 did. Well, that's all I got. Roll the nation. Well, what do you think, Ernie? Did the 1600 Elite do a good job? High five. That a boy. I have to use my nose because I got gloves on. Leah did pretty good. I'm proud of him.